Hi, Phil Silberman here with the Silberman Law Firm, and today we're going to go over how to draft a general warranty deed in Texas, and generally the nuts and bolts of drafting the deed. The first thing you see here in this document is the notice of confidentiality rights. This actually isn't required, but you should have it in every deed that you draft because I think if you don't have it, the county clerk will charge an additional filing fee, but it's always a good idea to have the notice of confidentiality rights up top here. This deed is labeled as a general warranty deed. Note that the title of the document is not dispositive of what it actually does. Because I see the title as general warranty deed, we're expecting the warranty in the deed to be very broad and very general, which benefits the grantee most. Then we come to the date of the deed. This date in these deeds are actually fairly meaningless. The real date that matters is going to be at the bottom of the deed in the signature block, which is the date that the grantor signs. The deed recites the grantor, Bill Smith. Just the name of the grantor is fine. And then it recites the grantor's mailing address. And the grantor, of course, is usually the seller in the transaction or the transferor. And then the deed recites the grantee, who's often the buyer or the recipient of the real property. The grantee's mailing address must always be included. That's actually a requirement of the Texas Property Code in the Conveyances section, I believe. So always do include the grantee's mailing address. And remember, a deed is a contract, so all contracts must have consideration. In Texas, this is a cash transaction, so here you just have cash consideration. And for 100 years in Texas, the custom has been to put $10 and other good and valuable consideration as the consideration in Texas. That doesn't actually mean the property sold for $10. That's just the recitation based on the practice. The sales price is not public record in the actual deed. Then we come to the property in the property description or the legal description, which is critical. You have to accurately describe what the grantor is conveying. In this case, you see it's the full legal description. It's a subdivision. This isn't a meets and bounds, so you can tell that this is some type of subdivision lot or house because you see a lot and block format. Remember, some people make the mistake of putting an abbreviated or truncated legal description here. If you go to an appraisal district website and you just pull a legal description there, sort of similarly to how a realtor does in a Texas Real Estate Commission 1-to-4 contract, that's not a full legal description. So don't ever use an abbreviated or truncated legal description. Always use the previous legal description that's from the deed that the grantor took title. So the grantor in this deed, for example, is Bill Smith. Bill Smith should have taken title in a previous deed as grantee, and that legal description should be copied here, the full legal description. You'll also see, you'll often see this language as well, more commonly known as the address. Addresses in Texas are something issued by the U.S. Postal Service. It's not really an accurate way to describe real estate in Texas for purposes of the deed, but you'll see a lot of attorneys go ahead and put the commonly known as address, especially for lot and block subdivision. If you just put the address alone, that's a really, really bad practice. I mean, the deed might not fail, but it's certainly not a good idea. Reservations from conveyance. This is, for example, if you wanted to reserve a life estate or a mineral interest or something like that, you would put those reservations there. In this sample deed that we're using, there are no reservations. The grantor isn't reserving anything. The next section of the document is exceptions to conveyance and warranty. Here you see things like easements, rights of way, prescriptive rights, all kinds of stuff, taxes. This section, the exceptions to conveyances and warranty, basically says is the grantor or the seller saying to the grantee or the buyer, you can't sue me if the property I'm selling you has all of these things that encumber it. These are my exceptions to the conveyances. And they're fairly standard stuff. I mean, most properties will have uh, deed restrictions and easements and things like that when you buy property in a subdivision, all standard stuff that the buyer would assume is out there anyway. But the seller, just from a liability standpoint, is saying, hey, buyer, I'm granting this property to you, but it's subject to these exceptions. And if you're using a TREC contract, if the contract merges into the deed, that's the concept of merger in Texas. But if you're using a TREC contract and you're preparing a deed based on a TREC contract, there'll be an option in many software programs. For example, our firm uses Westlaw, and you'll select the long form standard exceptions that are mirrored in the TREC 1 to 4 single family contract, and your list of exceptions will be here. And that's actually what this looks like. It looks like a short form TREC exception list. All right, and then you get to the meat of the deed. Any conveyance must actually convey the property. So you see here the grantor for the consideration and subject to reservations and exceptions, grants, sells, and conveys to grantee the property. That's the heart of the language. The seller, the grantor is actually granting the property. And then you get some other things with it, like the improvements and appurtenances. But then you get to the warranty. So we mentioned early on in this video that the warranty, in this case, is a general warranty, and that's the best kind of warranty if you're the grantee. It's also a good warranty for preserving title insurance. If there's not new title insurance, using a general warranty is best for preserving title insurance if you're doing a friendly transfer to an LLC or something. So this is a general warranty because all of the grantor is warranting the title of the property all the way back to the sovereign. A special warranty deed just warrants it, so long as the grantor had owned the property. So a general warranty is a much stronger warranty for the grantee. Last thing here in the actual deed that I'll talk about is this disclaimer. This is basically saying that this deed was prepared based on information furnished by the party. So in our case, this was a sample deed that our firm prepared, and we just prepared a deed based on whoever hired us gave us some information. We didn't do any independent title searches. We didn't check anything. It was just based on whatever the parties told us. And here's the signature block. Bill Smith is the grantor in this sample. Note that in Texas, it's typical that only the grantor signs the deed. Grantees usually don't sign deeds in Texas unless the grantee is making a promise. So that's very common if a deed has an as-is clause and it says the grantee is taking the property as is. Well, that's a promise that the grantee is making. So therefore, the grantee should sign that deed in that case. And then here you have the notary block. The assumption is that the deed signed in the state of Texas, so the notary would fill out whatever county it's signed in. This is the short form statutory block. So the notary fills out the date. Bill Smith is the grantor. The notary does their stamp there, signs it, because all deeds need to be acknowledged. This is an acknowledgement to be recorded in the real property records, which provides notice of the transfer. And then finally, this is instructions to the clerk, where all the real property records are recorded. In this case, it's recorded in Harris County. So our firm has an electronic filing system that goes straight to Harris County. But this will tell the clerk, or in our case, our legal assistant, to return the deed to Jill Jones, who's the first grantee deeds usually get returned to the first grantee in the deed as part of the delivery requirement of a deed. So that's the nuts and bolts of a general warranty deed. Goes over kind of a typical deed and everything in there. Hopefully you found this video instructive. Let me know if you've got any topics you'd like to see additional videos on concerning Texas real estate or probate or business law. And don't forget to, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Uh, and that's all. Phil Silberman with the Silberman Law Firm. We'll see you next time.